Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Shreya. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
A little tired. It's okay. I just hopped off a call with Lewis, so it was nice to talk with him one-on-one.
Tableau
Is he-
Visionary, Lewis?
Tableau visionary Lewis, you.
Oh, wow.
I love Lewis. Love a good yapping session with him.
He talks a lot, which is fine. I like to talk, and I also like to listen, so it all works out. I'm sorry, Emily. During that meeting, I expressed that I did not believe in horoscopes. I think it's fun, but I do not believe in it.
You know what? You're entitled to an incorrect opinion.
Oh,
You're allowed to believe what you want to believe, even if
thank you.
it's incorrect.
I'm very
So it's back to
diplomatic.
you.
Your bracelets.
Yes, I'll show you guys in our slides. I'll show you the bracelets in our slide. Yes.
Okay.
Heck yeah.
Bianca, will you be the one presenting the slides or shall I?
Sure.
That was not a.
I mean, yes, I can present them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep. Welcome, everyone, to our first event this year. And as soon as I heard that Shreya was a Tableau Visionary this year, I went to our slides and updated. Instead of like Tableau Ambassador, I changed it to Tableau Visionary. So we're having Shreya with us today, presenting her DataFam Europe talk, Wireframe Your Way to Visualizations That Wow. A little bit of an agenda today. This is the welcome and intro. Because it's the first of this year, I also wanted to give a recap of what we did in 2024. And then some upcoming events coming up this year. A big one is Tableau Conference. Finally, we'll have Shreya, and then I think we'll skip networking there. So here are our co-leads today. I'm Bianca. Elaine's here. She's a Tableau ambassador. And Emily's here, and she is also a brand new Tableau Visionary this year as well. So kicking off into our recap of last year, we started off with having Kevin Wee, also a visionary. So he was just presenting his journey using Tableau from coming from a chemical engineering background. And then our next event in November was a Tugsgiving, where Oishik Nandi made a Iron Viz submission about biryani. And so for Tugsgiving, we went through his viz about biryani. Here's some of Kevin's work. So he talked about his journey. So you can see on the side, it's biomedical stuff. And now he makes really nice vizes. And this is one of his recent ones that I really love about data podcasts. And with Oishik, this is his Iron Viz submission about biryani. And if you missed these, there are recordings up on YouTube. Also last year, we did a Back to Viz Basics collaboration. And the challenge was think like an analyst. So just using electricity data from the APAC region. Both Elaine and I participated in this, making 2 different business type dashboards. Just think like an analyst. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out. That's 2024, week 23, so towards the end of the year. Cool. Upcoming events, Emily?
Thanks, Bianca. So just shouting out, the dates have been released for Tableau Conference. It's April 15th through the 17th. I'm sure you've all heard about it. We'll also be there at Tableau Conference. And a shout out there, if you come up to any of us, we will have friendship bracelets specific for API tags. So come find us. There will be orange ones, which I hope you can kind of see. They all say API tag. And then there'll be, I just made a navy version literally last night. So there'll be as many as I can possibly, and all of us can do. I encourage you all to feel free to make friendship bracelets. It's a really great way to network with people, get people to remember you when you're at conference, when there's like bajillion people going on at the same time. So it's just a really great way. I always keep one version of every friendship bracelet that I give out. So that way we're always friends forever. So yes, so come find us. We'll all be sharing friendship bracelets throughout. And yes, the navy colorway, it was a stroke of genius last night because I was running out of orange beads. So come find us, whether in person, and hopefully I remember to mail them, open to mailing them as well. My personal goal is to make 500 bracelets. But by the time of TC, you don't have to make 500 bracelets. You could probably make 20, and I will overcompensate for you. But feel free. But yeah, TC's coming. And then speaking of TC, if we go on to our next slide, this is also a time there's a lot of organizing going on for Tableau conference. And one of them is actually Britt Rosenow is getting ready to do the step tracker. For those of you who may be new or haven't heard of this, basically everyone tracks their steps throughout Tableau conference, both virtual or if you're there in person, because it's a lot of walking. It's a lot of walking. So time to start training now. Get your shoes ready. Start breaking them in. This year she is creating a viz and calling out for participants so you can start tracking. If you have suggestions on maybe the data collection of the survey piece, now is your time to sign up and participate. So just giving those little shout outs. And I also have made friendship bracelets for this. So please feel free. It's a fun way to quantify your Tableau conference experience, both virtual or in person. And with that, I will hand it over to Shreya.
Let me share my screen. Almost there. Oh wait, am I able to share my screen? I'm not sure if I have that ability.
You should be able to, as you have like the presenter role. Do you have
Okay.
the little button?
Give me 1 second, I will figure it out.
No
Oh wait, there we go. Got it. All good. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen. So let's get started. Hi everyone, my name's Shreya. Thank you so much for joining me today as we go through the powers of wireframing and design thinking and how it can be so useful in. So yeah, big thank you to everyone for joining. So for today's talk, I'll start by setting the scene. We'll then move on to an exercise called Who's the Expert? After that, we'll explore the powers of design thinking and wireframing together. And finally, I'll introduce you to 3 tools that you can use for wireframing and share some helpful tips to get you going. But before we get started, I wanted to quickly introduce myself. So hi everyone, I'm Shreya. I'm a Tableau Ultrix consultant at the Information Lab, the same place as Elaine and Bianca. And as you guys may have heard, this month I became a Tableau visionary alongside Emily, which is so exciting. Thank you to everyone who nominated me. If I'm being absolutely honest, it hasn't fully sunken in yet. It still doesn't feel quite real, but it's such an exciting opportunity and I'm really excited to give back to everyone. I'm also a Tableau Public Ambassador. I have 8 visible days on Tableau Public. At last year's Tableau conference, I won the award for Best Designer, which is also so incredible. And I'm also a co-lead for the Tableau community project Back to Biz Basics. So in case you haven't heard of Back to Biz Basics, I run this alongside Eric Balash, and it's a beginner-friendly project to help you grow and develop your Tableau skills and kind of refine the foundations. I've been using Tableau for around 2 years and 6 months now, and I've also included a nice picture of my Tableau Public portfolio in case you wanted to check it out. But with that, let me start by setting the scene. So every business has its goals, whether that's increasing sales, improving customer retention, or reducing operational costs. But how can they achieve those goals? Well, businesses need to take targeted strategic actions that lead to meaningful outcomes. But then the question becomes, how do you know which actions will have the most impact? And this is important because resources are limited and no one wants to waste time or effort on the wrong priorities. Well, that's where data comes in. Data helps us identify the real problem. For example, if the revenue is dropping, the data might show it's because of a specific product. If customers are leaving, the data might point to long service times. By understanding the problem through data, we can find the right solution and take meaningful action. But here's the thing, raw data can be overwhelming and hard to interpret. And that's why dashboards are so powerful. They turn raw data into clear, actionable insights, helping us quickly spot issues and make informed decisions. And this brings us on to our next section, which is who's the expert? So here I have two candidates, a data analyst and a stakeholder. And in the comments, I want you to tell me who you think the stakeholder is, or who you think the expert is. And there's no right or wrong answer. I think this is definitely based on your own personal opinion. But let me know in the chat what you think. Okay, so we've got one stakeholder. Any other thoughts? Both? The stakeholder has more detail on understanding data both ways. Okay, a nice variety of answers. It depends. It depends. Yeah, so based on my own personal experience, I would also say it's both. So let's look into this further. Well, on one hand, we have the data analyst, and the data analyst is an expert of data. They know how to use BI tools, they follow data visualization best practices, and they know how to deliver insights quickly. However, they may not always have a deep understanding of the business goals or have that industry context. The stakeholder, on the other hand, is an expert in their industry or their business unit. They know the company's goals, the sector's challenges, and the necessary strategic decisions, but they may not have the technical skill to extract insights from the data by themselves. So that's why collaboration is so powerful. When a data analyst's insights combine with the stakeholder's business knowledge, they can make data-driven decisions that drive real growth. So together, they can turn data into actionable solutions that move the organization forwards. The key here is finding a way to collaborate effectively and turn their efforts into solutions that work. And that's where design thinking comes in. So what is design thinking? Well, design thinking is a collaborative problem-solving approach that focuses on understanding the user's needs and creating innovative solutions. And this approach follows 5 key stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And each stage plays an essential role in making sure that what we create truly aligns with the end user's need. So let's dive into each stage in a bit more detail. Starting with empathize. So empathize means truly understanding your users. Talk to them, observe how they work, and learn about their challenges and needs. The better you understand their pain points, the more tailored and effective your solution will be. Next, we have define. So in this stage, you define the problem. After understanding your users, it's important to pinpoint the main issue that you're addressing. A well-defined problem keeps your solution focused and ensures it directly meets their needs. After defining the problem, we move into ideate. So here you'll explore the data and identify key insights for your users. This stage is about deciding how best to present those insights, including which chart types or interactions will highlight the most important metrics. In Prototype, you'll create a wireframe to map out key metrics and ensure a logical flow of information. You'll plan user interactions like filters and drill downs. This is also a great stage to test the structure and the usability of your proposed dashboard. And this wireframe also provides early feedback, allowing you to refine your design before fully committing to development. And then finally, we move into test. So in this stage, you'll share the wireframe or prototype with your stakeholder to gather feedback. And it's a chance to check if the key metrics and functionality meets their needs. And this feedback also helps you make any necessary adjustments before moving forwards. So now that we know all of the stages of our design thinking process, let's go through an example of how we'd apply this to a real-world problem. So imagine you've been asked to create a dashboard for your local hospital, and you have complete freedom. You can create a dashboard on any topic that you'd like. How can you make the most impact and provide value? Well, in this case, we can follow our design thinking steps, starting with empathize. So we start by having those conversations with hospital staff and management to understand their challenges. For example, they might be struggling with staffing levels, patient flow, or bed availability. Understanding their specific pain points helps us focus on creating solutions that genuinely meet their needs. Now we're in the define stage, where we choose a specific problem to focus on. So in this case, we might decide that patient flow and satisfaction, especially in the ER department, is a key priority for them. To stay focused, I like to create a user story. And a user story frames the objective from the stakeholder's perspective, helping us stay aligned with their needs throughout the process. So using this template on the right, there we go, we'd write something like, as a role, I want to, and then their objective, so that I can, and then the desired action they would take. So an example of this would be, as an ER manager, I want to monitor patient wait times and admission rates so that I can make informed decisions to keep the ER efficient and provide timely care to patients. And yeah, I would always write a user story because it helps you go back to the problem from their perspective. So now that we've put ourselves in the stakeholder's shoes and we understand what they want from this dashboard, we can start brainstorming the key metrics to focus on. So think about which metrics are important and which charts you might use to bring this information to life. So for this hospital ER dashboard, I might want to look at patient visits, wait times, satisfaction scores, admission rates. If I'm going to showcase trends, do I want to use a line chart or an area chart? And am I going to include percentages, and where am I going to include those percentages? Because naturally our brains process percentages much faster than larger values, but it's picking out where it would be most effective to showcase values as percentages. So once you've identified the data and the key metrics, you can now sketch a layout to organize them effectively. And this prototype would give you a sense of how the information will flow, making sure that everything is arranged clearly and it makes an impact. So this might be a potential wireframe I've created for the hospital ER dashboard, just planning out where I'd want each metric to go and which charts I'd want to include on my dashboard. And then finally, we move into test. So I'll set a meeting with my stakeholders to share the sketch and gather their feedback. And they can let me know if the metrics and the charts I've chosen are useful, potentially suggest alternatives, and offer any other ideas to refine the dashboard before I start building it in Tableau. And for this stage, it's really important to be open to their feedback, as they'll be the ones using this dashboard to make informed decisions. And with their input, we can make adjustments to strengthen the plan and ensure it truly aligns with their needs. But that being said, don't discredit yourself as a data analyst or the person building the dashboard, because sometimes they may have a suggestion and you feel it might not be the best way to visualize that information. So in those cases, you'd have to go back to the stakeholder and explain why it's not the best decision. There we go. And with that, by following those 5 stages, you've turned a specific problem into a solution-driven product. You've created a dashboard that's impactful, it aligns with their needs, and if you did want to address another problem, you can simply go through the process again and pick out another pain point and turn that into a focused solution. Now, going back to the design thinking stages, you might notice that these stages aren't numbered, and that's because design thinking is an agile process. It's not always linear. You may need to revisit earlier stages. For example, after testing, you might realize that the problem needs redefining or new ideas need exploring. So this flexibility allows for continuous improvement as you refine your solution. But I'd like to bring the focus back onto the ideation and prototyping stages, as they allow you to shape and refine your ideas before moving forwards. And that's where wireframing plays a key role. So what is a wireframe? A wireframe is a basic sketch or diagram that illustrates the framework of a product, focusing on layout and functionality. Yeah, there we go. So here's an example of a wireframe for our Toyar dashboard. It maps out key metrics like patient visits, admission rates, and average wait times. And the purpose of this is to organize the information in a way that's logical and easy for the users to navigate. And this is the final product. So you can see how the structure remains consistent, but with additional design elements and visual polish added. So wireframing sets the foundation and ensures that the final dashboard flows well and meets users' needs. Now, why is wireframing so useful? I had a thought. I was thinking about this a while back, and I came up with 4 main reasons. So the first is that it saves you so much time. By planning out things early on, it helps you avoid big changes later on. And this not only saves time, but it also cuts down on development costs and effort, reducing back and forth adjustments. The second reason is that it improves usability. So wireframing helps you test the structure early and gather feedback from users. And this ensures that the dashboard is easy to navigate and key information is accessible. Third is that it helps you organize the layout for your dashboard. So it provides a clear plan for where everything will go, making sure that the most important metrics are positioned logically. And this helps create a smooth flow of information and avoids confusion. And last but not least is that it prevents scope creep. So a wireframe helps set clear expectations and allows for early sign-off on the plan's dashboard. And this ensures that everyone is aligned on what's being built, preventing unnecessary changes or additions later. I don't know if this has happened to you guys, but there's been a few projects where if you haven't defined the scope clearly at the beginning, stakeholders might be like, oh, can you add this on, or can you create this other view? And slowly, the project's timelines start to be pushed back because there's more and more work. So one thing I've started doing with clients is I'll create a wireframe pack early on, send it over, and get written confirmation that they're happy with all the wireframes, and that's what the product scope will be. So it protects you and your team, but it also gives your stakeholders something to look forward to. So wireframing packs can be really useful in that way. So now that we know how valuable wireframing is, let's go over the essential elements that form the foundation of any wireframe. So key components that you'd want to include are title, the title of the dashboard, which KPIs and metrics you'd want to include, chart types. It's best to have a rough idea of which chart types would be suitable. I love to use Andy Kriebel's visual vocabulary for this because it has so many different chart types, and it stops your dashboards from feeling kind of stagnant or boring because you've used the same chart over and over. User interactions, so are there going to be certain drill downs? Are there what else? If you're going to use parameter actions or set actions, clearly define those as well. And lastly, define the filters available for customizing data views and download options as well. So now that we've covered the essential elements of a wireframe, let's look at how we can position those elements, particularly the key performance indicators. So the Gutenberg principle helps guide us in positioning information based on how users naturally scan a page. And the two most common patterns that we use are the Z pattern and the F pattern. So in the Z pattern, we move from point 1 to the right, to point 2, then to the bottom and across again. And in the F pattern, we go from point 1 to point 2 to the right once more, then below to point 3, 4, and 5. And these actually show two different ways of visual scanning. The Z pattern shows how we scan information on a visual website. So this is how we'd typically scan any web page or website, whereas the F pattern is how we scan information on a printed document. So if you're going to print out a dashboard and give it to a stakeholder, you might want to follow the F pattern more closely. If you know that your dashboard is going to be digital, you might want to follow the Z pattern. But in both cases, positioning your KPIs at the top is a very strong placement because naturally our eyes will always go scan the top line from left to right. So that will help you capture your users' attention early. And when it comes to key performance indicators, those are the main metrics we want our users to see as soon as they open up the dashboard. Those are the high-level metrics. So positioning them at a place where you know that the users are going to pay attention to first is very powerful. Let's move on to wire fidelity next. So wireframe fidelity is all about the level of detail in a wireframe. Depending on the stage of the design process, wireframes can range from low fidelity to high fidelity. So on the left-hand side, I have a low fidelity sketch. Low fidelity sketches are usually quick, rough, and used early in the process to explore ideas without focusing on visual details. So they're more focused on functionality and layout. Once you've created a low fidelity sketch, you can then start polishing up and make a medium fidelity sketch. So these are more detailed and functional, providing enough information for stakeholder reviews. And these allow us to gather feedback and refine the design before moving forwards. And then finally, we have high fidelity. At this stage, the wireframe closely resembles the final product with polished visuals and detailed functionality. High fidelity wireframes are used for stakeholder sign-off and testing of visual design. So once again, low fidelity, you typically use it early in the design process, and then you'd move into medium fidelity. And then finally, when you're looking for stakeholder sign-off, you typically want to go for either medium or high fidelity sketches. But on this topic, the level of fidelity presented to stakeholders often depends on the project timeline. So for example, when I was training at the data school, we worked on week-long projects with clients, and we usually pitched mid-fidelity wireframes. And this allowed us to quickly gather feedback and move forwards with the build. In contrast, when I was working on longer projects, for example, at Lloyds Banking Group, I would always pitch high-fidelity wireframes because in our projects, we just had more time available, and I could ensure that everything was polished and aligned before moving on to the next phase. And another question I often get asked about wireframes is whether it's okay to hand draw them. And my answer will always be, it depends. Who's your audience? If you're creating a wireframe for yourself, or you're working on early ideas just for your Tableau Public, for example, hand sketching is great, and it's quick and easy to do, and it's also a great way to just get your ideas out onto paper. But if you're going to be presenting your wireframe to stakeholders or anyone else in your team, digital wireframes are usually the better option. And that's because they look cleaner, more polished, and they can range from low to high fidelity, depending on your audience's needs. Plus, they're easier to share and collaborate on. And Now that we've covered wireframing, it's important. Let's talk about where you can wireframe. And there are plenty of digital tools out there. But today I'll introduce you to 3 great options, and that is Excalibur, PowerPoint, and Figma. So let's dive into each tool. Excalibur is a simple, intuitive sketching tool that's perfect for rough drafts and brainstorming. It's quick to use, and you can get your ideas so quickly without focusing on structure. Next up, we have PowerPoint. PowerPoint is a highly accessible tool, especially since most organizations already use it. PowerPoint is great for creating more structured wireframes, making it a solid choice for presenting early ideas to your team or to stakeholders. And finally, we have Figma, which is my favorite. It's the most advanced of the 3, and it's a powerful platform for creating very detailed wireframes. And one of the key features of Figma is that it also has collaborative editing. So multiple people can work on the same design together in real time. So it's great for team collaboration. And in terms of fidelity levels, I would say Excalibur is great for low fidelity sketches, just anything quick and rough in the early stages. PowerPoint suits mid fidelity, structured wireframes that are easy to share and present. And then Figma is great at creating those high fidelity advanced wireframes that resemble the final product and enable real-time collaboration. Oh, I'm not skipping that. So now that we've covered those 3 tools, let's see how they can be applied. I'll show you an example of my top PlayStation games with wireframes in each of these tools, and I'll hopefully be able to demonstrate the differences in fidelity and functionality of each tool. So this is the viz we'll be referencing, but let's start with Excalibur. I'll zoom in slightly. Oh, can you still see my screen? Oh yeah, you can. Okay, that's great. So this is a low fidelity sketch I've made of my PlayStation dashboard in Excalibur. As you can see, it doesn't fully match the final product, but it's a great framework to begin with. So I can see I've used a circle to kind of create that radial. For the dendrogram, I almost made it slightly more squared. One limitation of Excalibur, benefits. So the benefits of Excalibur is it's quick to ideate on. It's so easy to move and resize objects with, and it's easy to prioritize layout and content. So even though this doesn't look like the final product, you can see how I've kind of put the rough framework down there and also use comments to highlight some of the functionality used in the dashboard. Limitations of Excalibur is that you have access to a small range of colors. You can add in hex codes by yourself, but it's very time consuming. You have a small range of fonts, and it's difficult to add more high fidelity details to this. At the top, you have a toolbar that has a few different shapes. So you've got a square, a diamond, circle, arrow, line, a pen tool, text, and you can add in images. But I'm going to show you how I'd typically create rough charts using Excalibur. So if I wanted to create a bar, I'd select the square tool and I'd start drawing rectangles. And a cool thing about Figma is you can copy and paste shapes. So that speeds up the process. And you can add as many bars as you'd like. If you wanted to add a zero line, you can use the line tool and draw that zero line. And if you wanted to change the shading of your bars, on the left-hand side, you have a panel where you can control the stroke and the background. So here I might want to make a blue bar chart. So I'm going to pick the blue background, maybe align it with the blue stroke. Or go multicolored. So as you can see, it's really quick and easy to get your thoughts out on Excalibur. If we wanted to create a line, we could select the line tool from the top and click multiple times on the canvas. and it will create a conjoined line. If I wanted to add some text, I can click the text tool. And when I said that you have a limited range of fonts, Excalidraw only gives you 4 font choices. So it's not great at aligning with the final product, but it's great for getting your ideas out nonetheless. So here I'm going to write dashboard. Ooh. And the cool thing I do like about Excalidraw is it's so easy to resize text, which other tools like PowerPoint and Figma, they don't have the same functionality. So once again, it's really quick and easy to get your thoughts out. And if I wanted to add an image, I can click on the image icon at the top, and we can add in a Tableau logo. So hopefully that gives you a rough idea of how Excalidraw would work, and you're more than welcome to explore it in your spare time. Next up, we have my wireframe made in PowerPoint. As you can see, this is instantly more aligned with the final products. So this is a great mid-fidelity sketch where once you have the framework ready, you can start polishing up those details and thinking about color and additional layouts. With PowerPoint, the cool thing is that you can start using gradients, and I love a good gradient. So PowerPoint is really great in that way. I found PowerPoint more useful in organizations that don't give you access to Excalidraw or Figma, because they just have so many restrictions. And if you did want to still wireframe, there's a good chance they'll have PowerPoint available. So it's a great wireframing tool in those scenarios. But the biggest benefits of PowerPoint is that you can start using gradients and patterns. You suddenly have a large variety of shapes and fonts at your disposal. So if I go to Insert Shapes, I suddenly have access to all of these shapes, whereas in Excalidraw I probably had around 5. So that can make my wireframing a lot more versatile. It's so much easier to add colors, as you know, in PowerPoint. You can change the color of objects so easily. I don't know why I'm going the wrong route. We could just do it using the shape fill tool. You can add in colors so quickly. And as you can see, the wireframe is more aligned to the final product. The downsides of PowerPoint is that it's more time consuming to build the wireframes and make quick changes. So that's why it's always a great idea to use Excalidraw, a great fast low fidelity wireframing tool to kind of finalize the framework and then spend time polishing up in PowerPoint or Figma, because it is time consuming to do that from scratch in one tool alone. And another downside of PowerPoint is that you can't collaborate with others in your team at the same time. Excalidraw has that functionality, Figma has that functionality. PowerPoint doesn't, unfortunately. But if you wanted to create a bar in PowerPoint, you could select your square shape. Similar to Excalidraw, start drawing a bunch of rectangles. And you can color and shade them however you'd like. If you wanted to draw a line chart, I think that tool would work. Once again, you can click, I think that's the polygon tool. Click on a bunch of points on your canvas, and it will join them up and create a line chart. If you wanted to add some text, as you know, in PowerPoint, you have a wide range of texts at your disposal. So if I type in dashboard, suddenly I'm not limited to just 4 fonts. I have all of these fonts that I can use. So I can make it more aligned to my final product. And if I wanted to add an image, that's also easy to do. Finally, let's move on to Figma. So this is the final high fidelity wireframe in Figma. As you can see, it looks quite similar to, I'm trying to find my PowerPoint one. It looks quite similar to this, just with extra polish added. The only thing that Figma isn't great at doing is creating curved lines. So in this case, you can see I've used a pencil, which looks like a monstrosity. But that's one thing that Figma isn't too great at doing, is curved lines. But overall, this looks so much more polished and so much more aligned to the final product. If you wanted to create a bar chart in Figma, actually, first let me introduce the shapes. So in Figma, you have, very similar to Excalibur, you have about 4 or 5 different shapes, but you have so much more functionality at your disposal, and I'll show you why it's so cool. So if we wanted to create a bar chart using just a shape, we can do that easily by selecting the rectangle tool, very similar to how we did in Figma. We can give it a color. We can even give it a gradient if we wanted to. Gradients in charts isn't always best practice. I would stick to doing that in Tableau Public than with a client. But the cool thing is that you can add gradients in Figma, which is really cool. And you can also copy and paste elements and create that bar chart. But there's also another way we can make a bar chart. So the benefit of Figma is that you have access to so many different chart plugins. If you wanted to add a plugin, on the left-hand side of your navigation pane, if you click on Main Menu, head down to where it says Plugins, and then click on Manage Plugins. You can see I already have quite a few on here. If you type in Charts, I'll go for the first one. You can use plugins to actually create charts and mimic trends in the actual data set that you might be using. So a common chart that people find difficult drawing in wireframes is a donut. If we wanted to create a donut in Figma, I could change the number of segments to 2, maybe inner radius to 60, hide labels, and I can add a donut to my dashboard or my wireframe. And I can even change the colors of those 2 segments. That would be a bit more manual, but you can do it. Oh God, that's a distorted donut. One of my favorite plugins for Figma is actually called, where is it, U-Charts. So it looks like this. It will load, give it a second. There we go. And suddenly you can create a line chart, an area chart, a squared kind of line chart. You have access to all of these different visuals in Figma. Oh, that's so cool. If you wanted to make a sunburst, you could make a sunburst tree maps. It's one of the coolest plugins I've seen so far. And a cool thing about this is that you can customize the X, Y axis, almost add in your own data set. So if you know what type of data you're working with, if you know what trends might exist in the data, you can make your high fidelity wireframe look even more polished, even more accurate, so your stakeholders know what the dashboard would typically look like, if that makes sense, because you're building in some of those expected trends. So this is a great plugin to use. If you wanted to add text, I can write dashboard. Annoying thing about Figma is if I try to make it smaller, it doesn't resize it automatically like Excalibur does, so it's more time consuming to change the text each time. But you can make it smaller if you'd like to. And if you want to add in an image, you can do that also. So I can add in my lovely Tableau logo. Oh dear. Okay, I'm going to quickly resize this. We're going to, let's say 200. Okay, I think I've made it too small, but it is on the dashboard somewhere. So as for interesting plugins in Figma, great ones I think you should maybe explore in your own time include Figma to Tableau, U-Charts to generate some sexy charts as you saw, and Dash Icons. So Dash Icons is actually really great. I'll show you what it's like. So in dashboards, we love using icons because it helps make our user interface more recognizable and easier to navigate for the user. So the Dash Icons plugin essentially has a bunch of plugins that you can instantly add into your Figma file. So let's say I wanted to add a tick. It will instantly place that onto my Figma canvas. Or if I wanted an information icon. And you can still change the colors of these. Oh, you should be able to change the colors of these icons. Let's try and change the color of the tick. Yeah, there you go. So if you wanted to change the color of the icons, you'd have to go into the group and select that vector icon. But it's just a quicker way of creating wireframes and adding those icons to create those high fidelity wireframes. So hopefully you found that demo interesting. So finally, I want to share 6 tips that will help you take your wireframing game to the next level. So my first tip is to lock the base of your wireframe, and this prevents the base from moving. You can do this in all wireframing tools, so Excalibur, Figma, PowerPoint, and how you do this is you'd right-click on the elements or the objects, and you just select lock. And this means when you're moving around charts in your wireframe or adding icons, the base won't move. And I know that can be quite frustrating if it does move. So always lock the base of your dashboard wireframe. The second tip is to hold shift to draw straight lines. You may have known this tip already, but if you didn't come from a design background, lots of people didn't realize that you could do this. But if you hold down shift, it will automatically let you draw a straight line. And this, once again, applies to all design tools. So Figma, PowerPoint, Excalibur. Third tip is to copy and paste chart elements. It's okay to copy and paste chart elements. It really speeds up the process. And it's great to do for low to mid fidelity wireframes. Even high fidelity wireframes, I still copy and paste elements. The idea with wireframes is that you're not producing the final product. This is so that the stakeholder knows what to expect. And it also gives you a rough plan on what you're going to do when you start developing the product. So don't be afraid to copy and paste chart elements. Tip 4, if you need a map, use an SVG image. So SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic, and it's the most high quality image you can get. And a great website I like to get SVG images from is mapsvg.com, and it's completely free to download SVGs from here. And the benefit of using an SVG is that it allows you to change the color of the map. So if you're using it in PowerPoint or Figma, I'm not sure it would work in Excalibur, but in PowerPoint and Figma, if you wanted to change the color of your map, SVG is the route to go, and it's also a very high quality image of a map, or the base of the map. So this is one of taken from Map SVG, and it's of the world, but I can also get one of just the UK if I wanted to. Tip 5, highlight key functionality with comments. So especially when you're showing wireframes to stakeholders, sometimes they like to take screenshots and show their team. In those cases, you won't be there to showcase the functionality. So I think it's a nice idea to highlight key functionality with comments, and it also makes sure that you can showcase or highlight those key functionality when you're in discussion with the stakeholder themselves, because sometimes when you're in meetings you can lose your train of thought so quickly. So this helps make sure that you're aligned on what you're delivering. And then my last tip is to be open to feedback. Your wireframe should be a starting conversation, so don't be disheartened if things change or you have to create something new. It's just a conversation to create a more focused and innovative dashboard product that will help your stakeholder. So if they are giving you feedback, that's actually a good thing, because it means that they're engaged and they care about what you're doing. If you wanted to practice your wireframing skills in Excalibur, PowerPoint, or Figma, I'd like to invite you to try out Back to Biz Basics. So for week 17, 2023, our project released a challenge to design a wireframe for a marketing campaign analytics dashboard, where a prompt acts as your stakeholder and defines requirements. So if you navigate to data.world, you can see our prompt for the marketing campaign analytics dashboard, and we will be your stakeholder, and it's up to you to design a wireframe that meets our needs. So this is a great example by Razor. She's an active participant of Back to Biz Basics, and I think this was one of her first times using Figma. And this is an incredible wireframe. So you can see how it was a great opportunity for her to practice her skills in those different tools. And finally, once again, every business has its goals. But now that you have a deeper understanding of effective stakeholder collaboration, design thinking, and wireframing, you can help achieve them with data. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this interesting. Just some contact details in case you wanted to connect with me further if you have any questions. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Shreya. Even for someone who, trained under the information lab, I didn't know some of these tips and tricks. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad that this helps. I think wireframing is really fun and powerful. I've noticed a lot of changes happen to organizations by implementing these processes, and they feel a lot more supported. So wireframing is great.
There is a Q&A section of this chat. You answered some questions live, so well done for having that kind of foresight. But let's see. Do you have access to the Q&A section?
I do, yes.
Awesome. Let's see. Let's answer some of them. I think one question that appeared during your presentation on the different tools is, should we start in this sequence from Excalibur to PowerPoint to Figma? Should you go with that sequence, or should we just start in Figma entirely?
Great question. So I would either do Excalibur than Figma or Excalibur than PowerPoint, depending on your organization and what tools they have access to. So technically, if you have access to Figma, you don't need to do the middle step in PowerPoint because lots of the functionality is very similar or the same. So I would start with a low fidelity sketch and try and move on to high fidelity straight away if I have a good foundation to work off. If you don't have access to Excalibur, that's where I would probably opt for hand-drawn kind of wireframe sketch to get the layout and the flow correct, and then polish up the details in PowerPoint because that's the next best tool you have available.
Thanks, Shreya. There's a lot of questions about Figma, so I'm just gonna push those towards the end and focus more on the wireframe questions. Do you have any advice on introducing the process of sharing wireframes with stakeholders, especially when it's entirely new to them? From Raheel.
That's a really great question, and it's something I've actually been doing with a recent client, is introducing wireframing into their dashboard processes. I think my best advice for that would be familiarize them with the benefits of wireframing. And I think the part that really appealed to my clients was protecting the team from scope creep, because a lot of their past projects did include scope creep because they didn't have this wireframing process standardized. So I would say kind of showcase the benefits of wireframing. Maybe have like an example project where you've introduced wireframing, talk to the stakeholder, let them give the feedback on how they found the process. Oftentimes it is very positive from the stakeholder. They appreciate that you're you're taking into account their inputs into the dashboard design process. And I think if they have like a good use case or a case study of how wireframing has really helped that project, they can implement it more and more.
Thank you. And Omer also asks, hey, I have a question from your initial slides where you shared the process of analysis. How can we decide the number of visualizations to fit in a dashboard to provide insights? I often see about 5 to 6 visualizations.
Yeah, that's also a great question. I think it comes down to the personal preference of the company and the dashboard developer. So it depends, but I personally like one-page dashboards just because it allows the user to see all of the information on one view. And it kind of minimizes the mindless scrolling effect where someone will be like, oh, I saw this chart above. What was the data? Oh, let me scroll back up again. Oh, but I want to see the data below. It can take longer for them to make decisions, and the whole purpose of dashboards is to deliver insights as quickly as possible so that they can make those informed decisions. And I find one-page dashboards are just most effective at doing that. So I guess it would be how many visuals would fit on one view, if that makes sense clearly. And if you did want to if you did need additional charts, it could be like a separate dashboard view that focuses on a different problem, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Let's see. There's some questions about the Tableau plugins. Is there any cost? Are they available in the free version of Figma?
As for Tableau plugins, I know there's a great one by La DataViz. He has a Tableau to Figma plugin. I definitely need to explore that further, but that's something you could explore. I think that one is free to use. As for other Tableau plugins, I haven't come across them myself, but if I do come across anything, I will definitely share it.
Sorry, I must have misworded the question, but it's regarding the Figma plugins, such as the U chart and the dash icon.
Oh, no, those are completely free to use, thankfully. Yeah, those are completely free to use. Use them at your heart's content.
Great to hear. Let's see. There's 2 questions about bringing the wireframes into Tableau. How do you load them in? And how do you place the elements inside of it? Because some people have seen it being done for the rounded corners look or even the gradient look.
So not the actual wireframe, but like the background for a wireframe. So creating it, yeah. I actually quite like creating backgrounds in Figma, but once again, it does depend on your client. Some love it, some want everything to be native in Tableau. So firstly, discuss that with your client, what they want. I have had clients that specifically ask for Figma design backgrounds. It's a very up and coming tool. How you do that, let me quickly show you. Sometimes demonstrations are best.
Thank you so much.
No worries. I'm gonna go down here. So let's say I've created a background for my dashboard. So I've selected a rectangle, drawn a rectangle, made sure that the width and height settings in the left-hand pane match my dashboard dimensions in Tableau exactly. So a common one is 1600 by 900. Maybe I've added a nice gradient to it. Okay, I'm looking into details too much. So let's say we've added a nice gradient. And we want to export this into Tableau. Once you've created your background, and let's say you have like other icons on it too. Imagine this is an icon. You would group the 2 elements together. So you'd highlight the entire piece. So it's highlighted rectangle 30, rectangle 29. Right click and group your selection. So this has created a group in our layers. And then I'm going to select this group. And on the right-hand navigation pane, right at the bottom, we have an option that says export. So when I click on this, I can then choose to export this as a PNG, a JPG, an SVG, or a PDF. SVG, once again, is the highest quality. But sometimes it doesn't work great for grouped elements. So if you're creating like basic backgrounds, SVG is a great choice. I tend to always export mine as PNG though, because it just ensures that things don't move around and it looks exactly as I've planned. And I don't notice much of a quality difference in Tableau. But you can select your type and then you can just click export. And that will ask you to save it in your downloads folder. And then you can bring it in as an image object in Tableau. I hope that answered the question.
Demonstration, yes.
Awesome.
And then the last question, I feel like would be a good way to conclude all of this. Figma can be overwhelming. What avenues do you use to train yourself to become avid creator in Figma from Ankit?
That's a great question. I think the best way to learn Figma would probably be to practice. I think there are some videos online. Lindsay Betzendahl, I think she's done a series on how to use Figma, which I think could be useful to many people. I think the best way to learn is always practice. I think a great way to practice is the Back to Basics Basics challenge.
And then a person was able to sneak in one more question.
If you know other people in the community that also know.
So this is in regards to your demo for bringing in the background into Tableau. They asked, and place the actual chart on top of the image object in Tableau, right? Is everyone's internet okay?
Again, please. Oh no.
All right. Okay. So this person is following up on the placement of.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, awesome. This person's following up on that demo from Figma background to Tableau. They're questioning and place the actual chart on top of the image object in Tableau, right? Question mark.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd basically tile this at the bottom and then you'd have floating containers over it, or even just floating charts. So this would be the only thing fixed on the dashboard view, if that makes sense. And everything else you can float containers over your dashboard image. A great way if you wanted to reverse engineer is to download any data visualization on Tableau Public that uses a custom image. And I promise you, it'll make everything so much clearer if you kind of reverse engineer how they've done that.
Definitely lots of great resources out there and great visits that utilize this concept.
100%.
All right. With that, thank you so much, Shreya, for sharing your expertise with us. We've learned a lot about wireframing, and thank you all for coming by and attending this API Tug event. Do we have any other slides or upcoming events besides TC? All right. Hope to see y'all at TC. Feel free to greet any of us, ask for a bracelet, chat, yap with us. We'll see you then. Thank you all.
Thanks so much for joining, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. Seriously.
I'm so glad. Thank you.